Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nora, and on today's video, we are going to be breaking down the new river kit from the premium shop. Today's video is not only going to show you how to use these pieces, but also different discoveries I have made from messing with the items, as well as build ideas. And of course, this is not the only video I'm going to do on this item set. I plan to use these in future build videos, so of course, stay tuned for those too. So before we even start building anything, I highly recommend laying out every single piece. That way you can visually see the corners and also other angles. This is just going to make the build process a lot easier, and you'll know which piece you want to use next. Now, through this video, I did actually struggle a little bit deciding on how I wanted the angles to go in one of the builds, but I promise over time, this definitely does get easier. This video was about an hour's worth of me just messing with the pieces, but I'm sure we will discover more tips and tricks through each build that we do on the channel. But for now, we're going to try to keep this as beginner friendly as possible. So to start off the guide, of course, this kit is very natural theme coded. So we're going to create a river, and as tempting as it is to just use a bunch of straight edges, definitely do not do that. We want this to feel as realistic as possible. This kit kind of reminds me of Animal Crossing New Horizon path designs. You have some inner corners and you have some curves and also outer corners. Your inner corners are going to be your best friend for any kind of natural build. This is going to help everything transition and connect really well together. So going into rivers, I would say you really want to make a goal to try to make this as curvy as possible. Whenever I'm going into like natural builds, I try to take inspiration from how something would look like in real life. You'll have some imperfect curves, you'll have some dimensions that are different in sizes. So going into the river kit, get creative with the curves and angle pieces, just because this is going to make your build look so much better and a lot more realistic. And as you can see in my footage, all these inner corners are helping me define the curve that I want this river to have. I don't think it's bad to have a lot of straight edges on your river build, but I do think that adding these curves and doing a ton of them is just going to help it feel a lot more realistic and prettier. But obviously different piece placements are going to look more appropriate for certain builds. So if I was doing a canal street, I would want everything to be pretty much a straight edge. Or if I was going for like a lake build, it's going to be a lot more space coverage and not as many curves. But as you can see, using the tips I have just mentioned with using the inner corners and outer corners, I have created such a nice realistic river, and it's not all super structured. And I feel like this is just going to look so pretty with a lot of the house skins that they have given us in the game. So now that we know the basics of the river kit, let's go ahead and move a step forward into something a little bit more complicated, like creating an island or maybe a curved river around an item. Now, you should kind of already know from my demonstration in the first build how to use these curves and inner corners, but if you forgot what piece is what for this type of look, for any kind of curve around an item or structure, you're going to be using the inner corners with the rocks and also the plain outer corners. This is going to help all the pieces connect together, and be ready to have to make like some slight adjustments throughout the build. I had to do that a few times just because we need to make sure there's space for the plain inner piece. So this layout idea did take a couple of minutes to build, so we're going to go ahead and just get the river structure around the item completely created. I'm going to show as much footage as possible through this, that way you can see what curves and what angles I am using around the item. But as mentioned in the earlier footage, the inner corners are going to be our best friend for creating any type of curve around an item. Okay friends, so now that our structure is completely finished, it's time to add some details to our river, and I discovered actually a lot of different items can clip and place into the river builds. So to add any extra details, I'm going to go around and place the beach grass, which clips beautifully into the river, and also add some water decorations, which I'm pretty excited because a lot of the decorations in this game for the water I don't really use because it doesn't really have anywhere nice to go besides the base game rivers. So I feel like I'm finally going to be putting these to great use. So I'm going to go around and also use the reeds just to add a little bit more detail to the river. You can also place the lily pads on the river kit, but my river wasn't wide enough for it. So if you do want to add that detail to this build idea, just expand the river out by one tile and they should fit. But after all my final details, here's how the idea turned out, and of course I hope this layout brought you a ton of inspiration. And let's go ahead and move on to a couple of small discoveries I made through testing ideas for this video. So I'm not going to cover this topic too long because I didn't have time to do a dedicated build, but I noticed that if you use the water tiles, you can place different items like the boat and house skins on them. Unfortunately, not all villager homes will work on here. Maui's home sadly did not work on the tiles, which I feel like is odd considering a lot of the other player homes do work on the water tiles, but regardless, I feel like this is going to be such a game changer for lake-like builds and different types of themes too. So I definitely thought that this was worth mentioning and noting in today's video in case you didn't know. So in today's video, we have covered so many natural ideas and tips, but what about city core? And I'm happy to note that this is actually a great item for city builds too, especially if you want to create canal-like streets. I was disappointed to see that not all fountain items can clip into the river kit, however the floor fountain does, so I think that this is a great addition if you want to make your river feel a little bit more realistic when you're using them in city core like builds. So I decided to place a few of the floor fountains into the canal street, and then I also placed a gazebo on each side just to give the build a little bit more character. I also skipped using the river borders for this build just because I was worried it would look a little too natural, but if you prefer the borders, you could definitely add those in. But for this build, I just used the medium size centerpiece and that's it. But here is how a town-like build with the river kit could look. And of course, definitely, expect more decoration ideas around this idea. I do plan to make a really detailed canal street video in the future, but I did want to showcase this idea in today's video too. Anyways, I hope that this video helped you learn the river kit and of course gave you some ideas for your own valley too. And let me know your thoughts about the river kit in the comment section below. Also, as we near the end of today's video, I wanted to give a huge shout out to all of my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me as a creator. Just your support in general means the world to me. Thanks again for watching, and as always, have a horrible day and see you soon.